Hi, everyone. I'm Jeremy. You probably know that. And I'm here joined by my good friend, Angie Perez. And I thought it'd be a good idea. Angie joined Conference Direct as my team member a couple of months ago. She's launching her business, kind of a crazy time to launch her business during this pandemic. But I thought it'd be a good idea to um, have a chat and just get to know Angie a little bit better and give her an opportunity to explain what she's up to, why she joined Conference Direct, and really just keeping it informal, but have a good chat between the two of us so you guys can get to know Angie, who's not only a colleague, but a very dear friend of mine, someone who I have a lot of admiration and respect for. She was a former client of mine. I'll let her tell you that story. But anyway, Angie, welcome.
Thank you. And
It's
thanks
good.
for doing this.
It's good to have you. Yeah, I'm excited. This is be something new that I think
Yeah,
I'd like to keep it up, not only with our fellow team members here, but other folks in the industry, just to check in on them. I think these days, especially with everything that's happened with COVID and how we've been so impacted, it's good just to catch up with each other, and check in and see what we can talk about here during
definitely.
relatively slow time. So give me a 3-minute description of who is Angie Perez, and you know,
Wow.
I know. Try and knock that down at 3 minutes. It might be a little tough. You're a big person, but try and give me like a.
Well, no, I'm thinking, how can I fill 3 minutes?
Oh, come on. You can fill 30 minutes easy, I'm sure.
Yeah. Um, so I am gosh, who is Angie Perez? Well, um, I consider myself a bit of an events professional. I love events because I love I guess socializing with people. I love food, so usually events include some kind of food.
Sure.
And I don't know, I'm kind of like a outgoing, driven kind of person. I love a challenge, so I do love a challenge. I would say that these times are pushing the challenge envelope for me,
I
but
think for
here we
all of
are,
us. Yeah, for all of us.
Um, yeah, yeah, it's kind of tough, but I think I just, overall, what drives me is that I want to help people.
Yeah.
So, anything that involves that, so I've been trying to, of course, help people whichever way that I can that are involved in the industry throughout this situation. And so that has brought a lot of rewarding feeling, knowing that I've helped at least a little bit to make a difference. So
In what way?
kind of
Like
like all
how
those
have you been
things
helping?
intertwined.
How have you been helping? When you say you've been helping people, how have you been helping?
Well, one thing that I'm really excited about is that I've been sharing social media posts for my colleagues in the industry. So people that are providing services. And at first I thought, well, how am I going to help? I mean, just by sharing a post. And I thought it was kind of futile in the beginning. And then I said, well, what to lose? Let me just try it. And it's actually proven to be pretty rewarding because some of my posts have yielded to um, to actual results for my colleagues for
That's so
sales.
cool. So you're like
And so,
you're putting stuff up to promote their business or their personal stuff, or what when you say you're posting stuff, what are you posting on those posts?
well, it's so far, it's been a lot of helping them post their business stuff. It has.
Cool.
Um, I have friends in the floral industry. I have friends in the catering industry. Um, I have friends that do decorations and specifically a balloon company that has really taken off lately with the whole COVID-19 thing and not being able to actually have parties like with graduates of class of 2020. So they've been doing a lot of those things like balloon drop offs, so that
Cool.
kids can have their graduation, decorated or whatever. And so that has been very successful. Um, Interestingly, one of my friends just started that company right at the cusp of this whole COVID thing.
Crazy.
So, and she's been doing quite well. I know. Isn't it nuts? I mean, even like prom, like John Krasinski did that Some Good News. I know a lot of people have heard of that. And so he had one of his episodes was actually Prom 2020, which was awesome.
I saw that one. That's
And
great.
there were a lot of the kids that participated. Yeah, they had like balloons, all over, like as if they were in a ballroom, for their prom at home. And so it made me think of that friend of mine, and so I actually got feedback from her that several of my contacts had reached out and purchased balloon drops, and it started
Very
way
cool.
back in Easter. Um, and I thought that was just so cool because I thought, well, I'm just sharing stuff, and you don't think that your followers are actually going to act on it, but it resulted in positive stuff. So,
I hear a lot of people say that's
yeah.
fantastic. I hear a lot of people say, oh, we're in this together, especially as we go through this tough time. I think that's an awesome manifestation of really being in it together. That you are helping other people and promoting their businesses through this tough time. And like you said, you never know who's going to see your post or how that might impact someone or their business, and maybe it means that's a really fantastic story. Tell the story about how we met and what brought you to Conference Direct.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah,
So, yeah, as you stated, I was a client, but before I was a client, obviously, I was a potential client, which is a funny and interesting part of the story of us, right?
yeah,
Um, I guess like every good salesperson, you were given my contact information by a mutual friend,
right.
and you reached out to me, initially reaching out to me knowing, I guess, a little bit about what I do or was doing at the time because of our mutual friend. And even the mutual friend reached out to me and said, Jeremy's going to reach out to you and just give him 5 minutes of your time. And I was like, okay, here we go.
I took a lot more than five
And,
minutes.
and kind of being, well, you've taken what, 6.5 years?
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it was just interesting, I'm I consider myself a salesperson. I mean, what we do is we provide a service, right? And just because we're not selling something that's technically tangible, we sell a service. We
Right.
sell, a reputation to our clients. I was a salesperson as well, even though I was an events manager for a large law firm. So knowing the whole sales thing, I avoided you a lot. And so it was funny, you know, you called me initially and we spoke, and I was like, yeah, well, I'm okay right now. I really don't think I need the services that you might provide. And I was actually working with a different company
Yeah.
that was very similar
One of my
um,
competitors, right?
at the time. And yeah, yeah. So you mentioned to me, well, if you ever, need anything, just give me a call. And it was funny. I want to backtrack real quick. So I finally decided to give you the 5 minutes after I avoided you a few times. And you showed up downstairs to my building,
That's
and you
right.
were like, I'm downstairs. What are you doing? And
You're like,
I
okay,
think the
creeper.
difference was you had called previously. You had called my Yeah, you had called my desk previously, and this time you called my cell phone. So I answered because I don't think I had your phone programmed in my
Nice. If you had known it was me, you probably wouldn't
So
have answered.
yeah, so you circumvented. It's possible. It's
Yeah.
possible. But you know what? I respect your tenacity on that. You were reaching me no matter which way. What I really did like, honestly, was just before that phone call where I decided to go downstairs and actually meet you. I had received a note from you, and it was a handwritten card. And I'm old school, and I thought that was so cool, that you had sent me a card. Like, people don't do that, they
Yeah.
just send you an email, whatever. So when you called that day and said you were downstairs, I was like, this guy sent me a card and now he's downstairs. I gotta go run across the street. So we met at the Starbucks across the street, and
Some coffee, some tea.
you showed me, your yes, I know, that's why when you said coffee, I was like, for sure. Um yeah, who can turn down a cup of Starbucks coffee, right? So we met, and you did take 5 minutes, I think, of my time. It was not a long visit,
Yeah.
and we just chatted. You went through a little bit of a presentation about Conference Direct, and honestly, I was like, wow, like, you'll do this for me. Like, there were a few things, even though I was already kind of working with a similar company, one of your competitors. There was a couple of things that stood out to me about Conference Direct that either I didn't know at the
Mhm.
time, or my competitor was your competitor was not offering it. So I went back, to my office, and I basically told you, for now I'm okay.
Right. I
I'll
remember
let you
that.
know, kind of thing.
Yep.
And yeah, and you get that a lot
Yeah, we do.
from customers. I'm not ready right now, but I'll give you a call. And I'm sure you walked away with, like, he's feeling defeated, like every service industry person, I guess.
A little bit.
um and then I had, like, a genuine need. Like, I was in a bind. It was ironically with that company, that I was in the process of negotiating a contract with a hotel. And I think, in reflecting now, I have to admit, it may have even been an oversight on my part that I didn't notice, but nevertheless, they didn't really point it out either, which was
Sure.
interesting. And I want to point that out, because you learn, right?
Sure.
And they should have pointed it out. It was something that person in that role should have pointed it out. So I refer to that now because it taught me that lesson. And so,
Yeah.
and seeing things like that. But so I called you, and in hopes that you might be able to offer me just some help, or if anything, um, give me some tips or ideas on what I could do.
Yeah.
And you graciously reviewed the whole contract for me, and you came up with a solution for me to go back to them and what to say. And honestly, to this day, you got me out of that bind. um and it was something that I, like, never forgot. And you did it completely free. You didn't do it for any kind of compensation of any kind, or, oh, hey, if you help me with this, I promise to give you the next piece of business. We didn't even talk about that.
Yeah.
And the next piece of business wasn't even on the horizon at the time.
Right.
And so yeah, I mean, that's basically how we met and how we started. What transpired after that and how I became your client is also complicated, because I worked for a law firm that I was not the decision maker.
Yeah.
Um, there were people, powers that be above me. So I was not the one that could decide if I wanted to work with Jeremy or not. I kind of had to sell the concept to other people.
Sure.
And so that has its own other challenges,
Oh, I
so.
remember. I remember. I think though,
Mhm.
I'm glad you bring up that story though, because I think that a lot of times, first of all, I probably should comment. I probably should have told you if I do this favor for you. Let's talk about working together in the future. But I think that we talk a lot about in this industry, and we're not unique in this sense, but you do business with people who you like and you trust. And I think that one of the first steps that you need to establish with a potential client is likability and trustability. And I'm often a fan of doing favors for clients or potential clients and say, look, no obligation. Let's just talk and let me help you out through a certain scenario. Once they see the value that you provide, I think that's an awesome way to really start working together and building on that initial trust that you establish. So I'm glad you brought up the story. Sometimes I forget that's how we met. Well, I don't forget how we met, but I mean, my point is, that initial, step of saying, look, let me just help you out of a bind. If you ever have trouble, let me know. I think it could be a really effective way to establish relationship. And like you said, here we are, what, 6.5 years later, not only colleagues, but great friends
Yeah.
too. So yeah. Tell me about Conference Direct. So you went from the client side and now you're on Conference Direct side looking for clients and establishing your business. What brought you to this side, and why do you see your future with Conference Direct?
So I I think well, you mentioned it a few times. We worked together. We continued to work together after we had met, and we actually continued to develop our friendship too as well. And in, I guess, those conversations, whether they were business related or just friendly related, you often mentioned, that I guess, you mentioned, hey, you would be really great at this, just because given your background of event management and being in the industry and knowing the industry so well. And, it kind of got me thinking. So I left the law firm I was at. I began working for nonprofits in similar capacities, right?
Hmm.
And you and I met um, in one of my visits back to Miami recently, last year. We met up for lunch, and it was I specifically wanted to meet with you because I was missing something in the work that I was doing. I was missing, the satisfaction. I mean, I like nonprofit work. I
Sure.
feel I'm doing something impactful in my community. I mean, there's no other explanation for that. I mean, and
Yeah.
I recognize that. But I was missing the portion of just, I guess, the events portion, the
Yeah.
adrenaline, the challenge of putting together a multifaceted, you know, you know, whether it's just 15 or 20 people or 250 or 2,000 people. I always say an event is just the same. It has the same process, whether you're welcoming 10 people and doing registration to a really high-end dinner for like board of directors, which I've done, or whether you're planning a huge seminar. You always have multiple facets of what that looks like.
Right.
Menu planning, whether you're going to need media coverage, photography. I mean, all the pieces that go
Yeah.
together. And so I was missing that. I was doing a lot of good work with nonprofit, and and I still volunteer, and I still do that work, and I still will continue to do that work because I find it to be impactful.
Sure.
But I was missing planning events
Yeah.
basically, and I know to some people that sounds horrifying. Like, some people dread the thought of, oh my gosh, my cousin's getting married and I have to plan her wedding. And to me it's funny because I hear that, not necessarily planning a wedding, but anything like that. I've got to plan this recital or this graduation or whatever, and I get excited,
Yeah.
and I guess I'm sick in that way. I don't know.
You're a special
So I
breed.
missed it, and I mentioned it to you. Yeah, I mentioned it to you during that lunch, and we had a couple conversations even after that, and situation presented itself that I was ready to kind of take the leap and try it. I mean, you really don't know if anything is going to be for you until you really try it. You
Sure.
can sit there and you can analyze it, and you can read about it and you can dream about it, but until you just dive in, you really don't know if it's something that is for you. And I know that I am an events person. I
Yeah.
know that. I love events. I'm passionate about them. um, so putting together, all the pieces for a client is part of the excitement. It's part of what drives me. That challenge of finding the correct venue, putting together the right flow of the event, planning all the meals and the layouts of what they're going to look like, speakers, and who's going to be on stage talking when. And I love all that.
That's fantastic.
So here I am. You said, hey, join my team. And I'm like, what does that mean? You mean we can be colleagues and friends
That's fantastic.
now?
That's one of the,
So here I am.
I
Yeah.
love this side of the industry because you do work with a lot of people that, I work from hotels, my background, and there were some clients that you just had to work with because they were your clients, and whether you wanted them to be at your hotel or not, you had to put up with them. What's beautiful about being with Conference Direct, not only with team members and people you work with as associates, but you tend to gravitate towards clients that you like too, and you work with people that you enjoy working with, which I think is one of the awesome benefits of working with CD. Speaking of clients, who do you look for as you build up your business? Who would be your ideal client? You mentioned weddings. You kind of cringe at that part, but what if you could pick your ideal clients and who you'd go after? Who would they be? What industry? What kind of person, etc.?
Yeah, good question. So, again, probably something that's viewed as kind of like strange, right? Is um, lawyers and law firms, and
Yeah,
people might think that that's weird, you know. But it's interesting because I don't think it's strange at all. I guess because I'm so familiar with lawyers and law firms. You know, the I guess the way that they're organized, um lots of the work that they do. I mean, the last law firm I was at did every type of work in the book.
yeah,
So the familiarity with that, I started moons ago as a paralegal, and that's how I actually started working for law firms, and then it developed into finance and all kinds of other things after that until I reached, the event manager position that I held when you and I met. And they're an interesting demographic to a law firm. There's the hierarchy aspect of it. That's different from perhaps other industries.
yeah,
There's a certain delicateness, I guess, to the work that they do. There's privacy issues, obviously, because it
sure,
involves clients that are not directly yours. So when you work with law firms, there's all those things that you have to keep in mind that I don't have to learn
right,
because I've already worked for law firms, so I know all those things. And you know there's difficult personalities in every industry, granted. There are lawyers have their share, of
sure,
difficult personalities, and so I know that already,
yeah,
and so going in to work with attorneys, I know how they want their event to go.
yeah,
And sure, everybody wants their event to go flawless, but it's above and beyond that, when it
yeah,
comes to lawyers. I'm sure doctors are a demographic that have their own, privacy issues and things as well, and quirks and whatnot. So obviously the attorney, or law firm, whether it's small or large, is going to be an ideal client just because I know the industry so well.
yeah,
Um, I don't know. I guess the other client that's ideal for me when I think of clients is a client that has no idea what they want.
yeah,
It's not to say that they are undecided, and they're going to go back and forth on, things or whatnot. It's the client that knows that they want to have this event, but they have no idea how or where to begin.
yeah,
And so I love show flow, you
yeah,
know, and that's one of my favorite things, put it together from start to finish. And so it's great to help people like that, gosh, I want to have this event, but I don't even know where to start,
yeah.
and then taking their hand and leading them through their event to the end. And then they get the credit for it, that it was an amazing event. And I feel so good
That's
because,
fantastic. Yeah,
had I not been working with them, they may or may not have had as a successful event just because they didn't know where to even start.
sure.
So,
So I should point out here too, you not only source events and look for hotels for your clients, but you actually can be involved in the planning of the events itself. You do conference management work as well, which is an area I don't specialize in or do, but you will get involved in planning the client's entire event, drawing up menus with the hotel,
right.
et cetera. Yeah. That's an awesome service.
Yep. Yeah.
From brain, like, my specialty of focusing on finding hotels and negotiating contracts. That's something I've always done. I think it takes a really special mind and a special breed, which clearly you are and you have, to be able to plan the event and really get into details of the BEOs and everything that goes into actual planning the event. I don't have the patience
Yeah.
or the mind for it, but I really appreciate the fact that you do. And that kind of brings me to another point. Like, when you dream of ideal service and what you want to plan for your clients or how you want to serve them, what give me like a story or two or some aspects of your how your service comes through, how you the kind of service you aim to give, and maybe even again give an example or a story or something like that would highlight the kind of service you aim to give.
Sure. Um, so, I'm a solutions person. And I know that that sounds cliche or repetitive, we hear it all the time, but I like to be part of the solution. And I know that, not to say that there is a problem, but usually when you're planning events, I mean, even the sheer having to plan an event is technically, without making it a negative word, a problem. Like, in other words, okay, here's a problem, like a mathematic problem.
Yeah.
How are we going to deliver this information? How are we going to solve this issue? And so, I guess part of what makes me, I think, work really well in that element of events or putting together events is that I can kind of see an issue before it's even happened or threatening to happen. Like capacity issues, for example. When you're planning a meal, issues with, setting up a buffet line. You've got 150 people and you've got a one-sided buffet. Well, I'm going to tell you that that may not work. Let's separate it from the wall and make it a double buffet, because your people are going to be waiting in huge lines.
Right.
Things like that that sometimes people don't think of, because it's not that I'm any different than anybody else. It's just they don't think of those things that I think of,
Yeah. Yeah.
and bringing that to light and like solving the problem before it's even become a problem
I love it.
is a great thing what I do. Yeah. um and you go back to example, I mean, I guess the best example that I can share is when I first started with the law firm that I was employed by when you and I first met. I was not in the capacity of events per se. I mean, I was a manager locally just in Miami for the Miami office, and I had not been given the role of event manager. I was in charge of, I guess you can call it their in-house catering,
Okay.
but I was not in charge of their large-scale events, and certainly I wasn't national. I was just in their Miami office, and so my first introduction to becoming their national event manager was their annual retreat. And they had these retreats once a year. They would alternate whether they were all partner, um, or just partners, and then all attorneys every other year. And this happened to be a year where it was going to be all attorneys. And so I was brought on board as like a team member to work the event, off site. And it was this multi-day event, um, with like 900 people, 900 attorneys.
Sizable.
And so, yeah, a sizable event. I was just brought on for the food and beverage aspect of it, but I went above and beyond that because I saw things, like I said, that were like flags, like, oh, you're gonna do this, it's not gonna work because you got this over here. And so I guess, you know, sitting in the planning meetings and coming up with these solutions, and before they even became problems, was something that at the time the managing partner recognized. And so I was given the opportunity after that event to become the events manager nationwide. And so that following year, after I accepted the position and I had the full responsibility of the retreat for the first time, uh, I wouldn't say by myself because it was a team, but it was on me because I was the event manager. That year was it, I was stressed out in the sense that, okay, so this whole event falls on me now. And honestly, I mean, I often say it that I kind of blow on the dice and roll the dice on stuff, and it just works out for me. Because I hate saying, oh, well, I handled it so well and blah blah blah, and I'm not that kind of person. But that retreat is still talked about today, and it probably happened like 10 years ago. And
Wow.
so that makes me feel really good,
Sure.
knowing that, and we took some risks, on that retreat. And I actually suggested some things that were different to what they were used to doing, year after year. And that partner, he also had the confidence in me, which is very important,
Sure.
um, for a client to have. You go back to that whole thing about part of why people work with people is because they trust them. Um, and, you know, going to, um, I'm getting a frozen screen. I don't know if, can you hear me?
I can see you. I got you. Yeah, you're good.
Okay. Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah. Okay. And part of the success of a person, I think, is having other people that, that have confidence in them.
Yeah.
And so that year, the retreat was very successful. And I think part of it has to do with the fact that, this partner and the rest of my team actually had the confidence that I could lead the team in this event. I mean, it was multiple days, 900 people, breakouts every day, lavish dinners at night. It included attorneys and their guests. So we had to have auxiliary events like yoga on the beach and stuff to keep the husbands and wives busy. Um, it was a challenging first event to have on my plate, and it was a lot of fun though.
But you hit it out of the park. Sounds like you did a fantastic job. I kind of wish I was working with you back then, 10 years ago, instead of 6.5 years ago. That would have been a fun event to be part of.
I
Yeah.
know,
So
I
I'm
know.
hearing anticipating needs. I'm hearing going above and beyond. I'll tell you one thing I've always admired about you is your attention to detail, and you do really strive to go above and beyond. I always notice that when we work together. When you were with your former law firm, when you were my client, just the attention to detail that you had for every piece of the event, I thought that was very admirable. That's why I'm honored to work with you now with Conference Direct. So I think that that kind of service you provide really aims to go above and beyond. You really want to go that extra mile with whatever you do, and that's something that I think is again a very admirable quality. Speaking of anticipating needs, obviously with the state of business today, there's not a heck of a lot of meetings going on. Clearly, our industry has been affected. Probably one of the hardest hit industries throughout this COVID-19 shutdown here. What are you doing to anticipate the rebound of business? I know that you're building up your client base. What are you doing? Like, what are the steps you're taking to make sure you stay ahead of the curve and that when business does come back, you'll be ready?
So, yeah, this has been really tough. I feel almost like at the start of the year, is when I really hit the ground running, and I feel like I had a good start going, and I had some things that I was working on and building with some, former contacts that I had worked with in past lives, kind of thing. And this has been a big jarring thing for a lot of people, obviously. Um, Not having face-to-face contact affects so many industries, and obviously, events industry is really impacted, by it. So I guess the difficulty has been to, like everybody else, stay positive, trying to keep current with what's going on. Things change as quickly, from one minute to the next.
Yeah.
So anticipating those changes and staying ahead of the curve, kind of thing, or trying to. Another thing, that I've done is just keeping in people's eyes and ears,
Yeah.
not kind of trying not to fall off, um, it's very important, I think, in our industry, to stay connected
Yeah.
regardless, and it's not about, oh, hey, remember me when it's time to do business. No, it's just kind of like, I genuinely care about a lot of people that I choose to potentially work with or try and partner with. And so in this situation, it's been difficult to see, people that I care about
Of
struggling,
course. Yeah.
um, economically, emotionally. Yeah, it's a lot. I've had several friends lose their jobs. I've had several people that I even potentially wanted to help as far as a client lose their jobs. And so it's kind of hard to keep your head steady and positive in that.
Of course.
I've been trying to share just things that aren't necessarily even industry related. I
Yeah.
mean, just recipes, books, ideas with books. I think even helping those colleagues that are in the similar industry has been helpful, and keeps you current,
Yeah.
and keeps you alive, so to speak. It's weird when you say alive in this electronic industry, this electronic time that we have, but like, so electronically I've been trying to stay alive,
Sure.
so to speak, and posting maybe funny things. I still have to do a video, the video we talked about the rhubarb.
Oh yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
haven't done that yet, but so I still have that pending, and sharing cocktail recipe ideas, or even just what I'm cooking for dinner,
Yeah.
like yesterday I thought I'd get more inquiries about coffee rub on pork chops, but I
I
didn't.
actually want to ask you about that. We'll
But
take that conversation offline because I saw that and I was very intrigued.
yeah,
I'll
yeah.
have to hear more
So
about that.
things like that, yeah, things like that I think that people are not even aware of, maybe,
Sure.
and just throwing it out there and saying, hey, if you're interested, hit me up, kind of thing.
Yeah. I think
So I've been doing that, and
yeah, no, just what you said, what we
go
talked
ahead,
about
sorry.
earlier. No, it's okay. Likability and trustability, um, I'm kind of getting from what you're saying, and it's something I share too, is just being present, being positive, and not necessarily talking about work, but just making sure people know you're there and reaching out and that you care. That even if it's again sharing a silly recipe, people remember and respect that. They know you're thinking about them, and I think that those kind of things really help, especially when we're look, people are struggling mentally, people are struggling physically with this whole entire shutdown. Being that friend is a great way. Business second, business might come of it. If it does, great. If it doesn't, that's fine too. But just staying in front of people, I love those ideas
Right.
of what you're doing to share. Speaking about that, you talk about the rhubarb, you talk about the coffee rub. What are you doing, work aside, to kind of stay sane during these crazy times? What are some of your hobbies or likes or interests that you're keeping up
Yeah, I
with?
wish I wish I could say that I'm working out every day, like 2 times a day, but I'm not. I have a girlfriend locally here. She lives in my neighborhood, and she's driving me nuts on Instagram. Not in a bad way, in a good way. She is part of like a nutrition system, and so she's posting all these things on Instagram. And like the other day, she put that it was her third workout in the day, and I was
Yeah,
like, "Oh my gosh!" Like
that's
seriously, I'm like
that's
this, and I
intense.
walk down the street. I go out to get my mail, and I'm like, I'm not even gonna look down that way to the little red house because I don't want her to see me.
That's
But
hilarious.
yeah, so I'm not working out. I have to be honest. I'll keep myself, honest here. I
Well,
am
and
not
that
working out, and I
okay,
have not cleaned out. I haven't cleaned out my closets like Maria Kondo or whatever. Haven't
right?
done that either.
Yeah,
Um,
you haven't found
but
what
I
brings
am
you joy.
reading. Yeah,
What's the
I don't know. All my old clothes still brings me joy.
There
So
you
there
go.
we are.
Perfect, perfect.
Um,
Sparks your joy, I think, is what it is.
no,
What
I've
sparks
been
your joy?
cooking. I know, right?
Yeah,
I've been cooking, and cooking is a big thing for me. I, you know, I love the kitchen. I was born into a family of kitchen lovers, so it's hard to get away from it. I love food, so cooking and finding new recipes and trying new things. I'm not much of a baker, so I've been kind of taking this time to experiment with baking. It hasn't gone very well. That's probably why you're not seeing my bakery stuff up on on social media.
that's hilarious.
um continuing in my love for mixology, I've taken upon this like venture of infusing. I'm a gin lover. um Kind of strange because I'm Cuban, so you'd think I'm a rum lover, but I love rum too. So, but anyway, I'm drawn to gin because of its like chemical makeup. It's really interesting to me. It's aromatic.
Yeah,
It kind of absorbs flavors and stuff. So I'm really intrigued by that whole process. So I've been doing some gin infusions, and we were laughing about the whole rhubarb thing the other day. Rhubarb is like a big thing in the Midwest,
Yeah.
and I'm learning that. And so it has a very short apparent lifespan. It's like a spring, early summer kind of vegetable, because
Yeah.
it's actually a vegetable.
Yeah.
And so I was going to do a little tutorial, which is still pending, to infuse some gin with rhubarb, because I actually had some when I was in London year and a half ago, and it was like the best gin I ever tasted.
Nice.
It was amazing. And so I tried to get some here in the States, and it like doesn't exist. So I thought I'm gonna make my own rhubarb gin.
I love it.
And so I'm experimenting with that. Yeah. So in reading and learning, taking this time to learn about anything. I don't know. It's gardening is a big thing too here
Yeah.
in the Midwest. I've been doing quite a bit of that. It's frustrating because I don't have a green thumb either, but I've been trying.
Good.
Um, so I guess I've been, yeah, going to that challenging bit of me. I've been trying some challenging things that I don't really, that aren't really my kind of cup of tea, but I figured I'd give it a shot. Why not?
I love it. So I'm waiting for your rhubarb gin recipe, your video there. I'm going to challenge you to, since you mentioned it and I'm asking about it, talk about the coffee rub on one of your posts too. I'd love to see more about that because, like you, I like to get in the kitchen and I'd love to know what that coffee rub is all about. I was intrigued by that. So don't tell me now. Give me something to look forward to on one of your
Yeah,
posts. All right. You are
sounds
always
good.
so
That's a deal.
good. You are always so good about posting inspirational thoughts, messages, some really good stuff to get your head around. One of the guys I listen to, Jim Rohn, and his prodigy Tony Robbins, he always says, you got to stand guard at the gate of your mind. I think nowadays more than ever. Share with us some kind of wisdom that you've been chewing on recently, or something that you'd like to share as we kind of wrap up this conversation. Give me some kind of wisdom that's helping you get through. Well, it doesn't even have to be specific to this time where we're dealing with the lockdown, but just in general, life wisdom that you'd like to share as we wrap this up.
Wow. So that's a tough bonus question that you're tossing at me, but I like that. See, I like that. I guess, you know, I don't know. I just keep moving, hopefully forward. Moving backwards is not a pleasant thing to do. Sometimes I do that. I move backwards in my thoughts so that I can see where I was and see where I've come to, and possibly it would help me peer into the future of where I'm headed.
Yeah.
So I do look to the past for that. I do. I have a lot of positive things in the past, just, industry related, that have really brought me to who I am today. And I treasure those moments, good and bad, challenges, tough days, tough nights, sleepless nights with events that, that's part of what has brought me to who I am today. And so I think, I always tell my son this, and so I will share this. Just keep going. um, I guess part of me is stubborn. And so sometimes I keep going, and I think I keep going because I'm stubborn.
Yeah.
But I think it was just something that like my parents instilled in me, that you can't really, I don't think that you can give up. I mean, I think you could determine that something doesn't work and you can change and pivot directions, and you're still not really giving up per se. I think you're just taking that knowledge and moving a different direction. But as long as you keep moving, I think we'll be okay. So that's my tidbit of advice.
I love it. I'm reminded of Finding Nemo. Just keep swimming. Um, there's
Yeah.
also, I want to say there's a TED, I know there's a TED talk, and I want to say her name is Angela Duckworth. She wrote a book about tenacity, that the thing that
Oh,
separates
yeah.
people who are successful from those who are not successful is simple tenacity. That it's not intelligence, it's not character, it's not your where you were born or your station in life. It's tenacity. Obviously, all those things play into a certain degree, but the idea that you just stick to something and that you don't give up is something I try and teach my kids. You know, it's not necessarily you have to be the smartest or the fastest or the best looking or anything. What you do have to do is show up and not give up. So I really appreciate that. Excellent
Right.
word. I love the fact that that's what you chose as your wisdom to share. Beautiful. So, Angie, you are tenacious. You are caring. You go above and beyond. You like to see into the future and try and plan and anticipate needs. Thank you for sharing that. I think this has been a great kickoff to our little series of interviews here. As we wrap up, anything else you want to share, or let the folks know anything about Angie before we close the chat?
Um, no, just, if anybody that is watching this on either of our platforms, once we share it, needs any help, that they would hopefully reach out to us, because we're partnered together. I think that you have a lot of amazing qualities too, and us together, I think, is a really good team, and I'm so happy to be on your team. And just, if anybody's got anything going on that they need help with, to reach out, whether it's in the
Fantastic.
kitchen or dealing with gin or otherwise.
Or even if it's a favor, just to get out of a tricky situation when it comes to hotels, just how we met. I think that's another great way to kind of end the call
Yeah,
there. Whatever we can do to help, particularly during these relatively tough times
exactly.
here, we're here for you. Angie, I really appreciate the time. Thank you so much for honoring me with this
Thank
conversation.
you.
I hope the folks watching get something out of it. I want to end on this. The joke that we had for the first, I don't know, year of us knowing each
Oh,
other. I used to wear, when I had a jacket, I usually don't go without a pocket square. I wasn't going to wear a jacket for the call, but I got a shirt with the little pocket here. So I'll end the call honoring our tradition of pocket squares here
and it matches.
in my t-shirt. Yeah,
And it
it has to
matches
match.
so well.
It
Yeah.
has to match.
It has been it
Um,
has it has been weird. It has been weird seeing you in a t-shirt so much
I
under
know.
these circumstances.
I think it's
You're
the new normal.
always such a sharp dresser, and that's
So much of our
yeah,
business has changed these days. This is now the new normal, t-shirts and Zoom calls.
true.
But listen, Angie, again, thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. Thanks for sharing your story. And
Thank
folks,
you.
reach out to us if we can ever help you. Reach out to Angie, reach out to me. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jeremy.
All right.